Ever feel like your body goes haywire just from thinking about stress? Today, we're unraveling the hidden secrets of ancient practices that hold the key to calming your mind and body. Meet Emily, a cognitive psychology expert, and Ryan, a neuropsychologist. They're here to reveal how techniques like the Tibetan Rites and Taoist energy work can quiet anxiety and soothe those mysterious physical symptoms. Get ready to uncover what ancient wisdom has been hiding for centuries.
Ever notice how, even just thinking about something stressful can make your hands kind of shaky? I know I'm not the only one.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what we're diving into today, how some of these ancient spiritual practices can actually help with good old modern anxiety, especially those, annoying physical symptoms like tremors.
It really is fascinating, how these ancient cultures were so tuned into the mind-body connection way before, modern science even caught up. They just knew somehow that our thoughts and feelings, they directly affect our physical state.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. We're diving into your research on the Five Tibetan Rites, which, for anyone who hasn't heard of them, are this whole system of exercises that have been around, for centuries?
Yeah,
What makes them so special, so powerful?
Well, the idea is that they help balance your body's energy systems, which I know can sound kind of out there to some people. But get this, research from Stanford University, has actually shown that mindful movement, and that's what these rites are, can actually really reduce anxiety and depression for real.
So it's like a 2-for-1 workout then, body and mind.
Exactly.
Sign me up. But how does just moving around actually change how we feel inside?
So these movements, they tap into something called the parasympathetic nervous system. Think of it as our body's chill out button.
I like that.
Right. It's like flipping the switch from fight or flight, which is what anxiety does, throws us into that mode, over to a calmer, more grounded state.
Okay, so if I'm following these Tibetan rites, they could actually help someone with, say, those shaky hand moments because they're calming down that whole nervous system.
You got it. And here's the really amazing part. The more you do practices like this, the more you actually enhance your brain's neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity sounds kind of intimidating, I'm not going to lie.
It's just a fancy way of saying your brain's always learning, adapting, changing.
Okay, that's better.
So by doing these rites, you're basically rewiring your brain, helping it get better at handling stress and anxiety, literally building up mental muscle.
So we are talking brain training here. But for chill, that's wild. But these ancient cultures, they weren't just onto something with movement, right? There's also this big focus on energy flow, like in Taoist practices.
Absolutely. A great example of this is the concept of Naiden.
Naiden, okay.
This Taoist system, it emphasizes the flow of qi, which is like this life force energy, through meridians, which are these pathways in the body. Now, you don't have to buy into the whole mystical energy thing to see how this works. What's so cool is that this ancient idea, it lines up perfectly with modern research on, get this, the vagus nerve.
Okay, yeah, the vagus nerve is having a moment lately. Everyone's talking about it.
For good reason. It's basically the communication superhighway between our brain and our body. Dr. Stephen Porges, who's a leading expert on this, he calls it the vagal brake.
The vagal brake.
Yeah, because it helps regulate our stress response. It's like slamming the brakes on that anxiety spiral before it spins out of control.
So how does this tie back into those Taoist practices?
Well, there's this practice called a microcosmic orbit. It's all about circulating energy through the body. And guess what? It actually stimulates and calms the vagus nerve. Less anxiety, and it could even help with those physical symptoms we were talking about, like tremors.
Wow, so these ancient practices were early vagus nerve stimulation hacks. And now people are getting implants and stuff to do the same thing. It's incredible how this ancient wisdom is being backed up by science now.
Right. Really highlights just how connected our mind and body really are. And speaking of mind-body practices, let's talk about another fascinating system, Kriya Yoga.
All right, Kriya Yoga. Now this one involves a lot of breath work, doesn't it?
It does.
I feel like I need to take a deep breath just thinking about it.
That's a good instinct. It's a key part of it. There are these two doctors, Doctors Brown and Gerbarg. They're pioneers in the breathwork world. And their research has shown that controlled breathing, like what you do in Kriya Yoga, it has a huge impact on anxiety. Huge. They've got studies and everything published in legit medical journals showing that slow, deep breathing can instantly, practically flip that switch to the calm part of our nervous system like that.
So it's not just a quick fix. This is about changing how our bodies react to stress long term.
You got it. But Kriya Yoga, it doesn't stop at just the breath work. It also uses meditation, which has a whole other set of benefits for anxiety.
Right. Everyone's talking about meditation these days. Even I've tried to fit some mindfulness into my day. Is that kind of along the lines of what we're talking about here?
Oh, totally. It's a core part of it.
Yeah.
That's actually like Dr. John Kabat-Zinn's whole thing.
He's like the mindfulness guy, right?
Exactly. Godfather of mindfulness, basically. And his research is amazing, shows that meditation can, get this, literally change how our brains respond to stress. It specifically calms the amygdala, which is like our brain's alarm system.
So calmer amygdala, less likely to freak out when things get hairy.
You got it. And here's where it gets even cooler. There's research that's shown that people who meditate for a long time, including those who practice Kriya Yoga, they actually have structural changes in their brains.
Wait, hold up. Structural changes. You're saying meditation can change the actual physical structure of our brains?
That's right. These folks, they show more gray matter in the areas of the brain that are all about managing emotions. It's like Kriya Yoga is giving your brain a workout, making it stronger, more able to stay calm, even when things get crazy stressful.
Wow. So we're talking about like rewiring our brains to react differently to stress instead of just like shaky hands, racing heart, the whole deal. Amazing.
It's pretty incredible what these practices can do. And so we've got Kriya Yoga working with breath and meditation, but there are other practices that use the power of, get this, our thoughts, like mental mudras.
Mental mudras. Okay, gotta admit, that one's new to me. Is it like, I don't know, doing yoga poses, but with your mind?
You're on the right track. Imagine taking those physical yoga poses and like applying them to your mental and emotional state. So mental mudras, they use visualization and focused attention, and the goal is to shift your energy and emotions. And the wild part is this ancient practice. It lines up with a modern therapy, CBT.
Wait, really? Okay, hold on. How do mental mudras connect to like actual CBT?
So CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Aaron Beck, he's like the big name there. And his whole thing is that the way we think directly affects how we feel, how we act, everything. So if we can learn to change those negative thought patterns, boom, we can change those anxious feelings, those physical reactions, the whole shebang.
Right, like reframing your thoughts to change your whole experience.
Exactly. And that's what mental mudras do too. When you do these mental postures, you're basically training your mind to zero in on those positive emotions, positive intentions. It's like giving your brain a mental workout in positivity and resilience.
Okay, I see the connection. But how does this translate to something like, say, those tremors we were talking about? If you're physically feeling anxious, can just changing your thoughts actually help?
There's a research that shows that these mindfulness practices, and that includes visualization techniques like mental mudras, they can really help us regulate our emotions and dial down those physical anxiety symptoms. It's like by calming down that overthinking part of your brain, the worry wart, mental mudras give your mind a break from anxiety. And when your mind chills out, your body can often follow.
Hitting the pause button on those spiraling thoughts that lead to that physical anxiety makes sense. Calm the mind, calm the body.
Exactly. Now, you ready for something a little, how should I say it, more on the mystical side?
Bring it on. I am always down to expand my horizons, especially when it comes to these ancient practices. You know, they've been around for so long, there's got to be something to them.
I like your thinking. All right, then let's dive into the world of Shaktipat.
Shaktipat. Okay, full disclosure, this one feels a little outside my comfort zone. What's the basic idea?
So Shaktipat is basically about transmitting spiritual energy from, say, a teacher to a student. The goal, to awaken this powerful energy within what's often called Kundalini energy.
Kundalini energy. I've definitely heard the term, but not sure I totally get it. It's like, what, a superpower we all have hidden inside?
Kind of. It's often described as this dormant energy just chilling at the base of your spine. And when it's awakened, profound spiritual experiences, personal transformation, the whole 9 yards.
So how does this transmission thing even happen? Is it like a magic touch or something?
It can be a lot of things. A look, a touch, even just being near the teacher. I know. It sounds a little out there.
It's definitely got that mystical vibe, yeah. But you were saying there's some interesting overlaps with like modern psychology too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, that drive to be our best selves, to seek out those experiences that are, beyond the everyday.
Yeah.
Well, practices like Shaktipat totally align with that. They're about fostering this deeper connection to something bigger than ourselves.
So even if we don't fully grasp how this energy transmission works, just the intention, the belief in that connection, that could be enough to spark some real change.
You got it. And while Shaktipat hasn't been put under the microscope the same way as like meditation, there's this whole field called neurotheology.
Right.
It's all about how spiritual experiences can actually create physical changes in the brain.
Neurotheology. Okay, now we're getting seriously deep.
It's fascinating stuff. There's this doctor, Dr. Andrew Newberg. He's done a lot of work in this area. And he's found that these practices like Shaktipat, the ones that involve this energy transmission, they can light up the anterior cingulate cortex.
The anterior cingulate cortex. Now, refresh my memory. What does that part of the brain do?
Oh, it's a big one. Empathy, compassion, emotional regulation, all that good stuff. So we're still figuring out exactly how Shaktipat works, but there's definitely evidence that these spiritual practices can have some pretty awesome and tangible positive effects on our brains, our well-being. Like, it's not just in our heads, you know?
It's like these ancient practices, they were onto something deep about the human experience, something that science is just now starting to understand.
Exactly.
So, wow, we've covered some serious ground here. Ancient exercises, energy work, even like transmitting energy, the whole mystical shebang.
It's a lot to take in for sure.
It is. But let's bring it back to our listener who's, really interested in this stuff for anxiety, especially those physical symptoms like tremors. Where do you even start with all this, like trying to actually use these practices in your life?
That's the million-dollar question, right? It really comes down to what clicks for you as an individual. Some people, they gravitate towards movement. Others, they're all about stillness. Some folks are drawn to that more like mystical side of things. No right answer, no one size fits all.
So it's like finding a workout routine you can stick with. Gotta actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
What if our listener, they're into those Tibetan rites we were talking about, the whole mind-body thing?
Tibetan rites are great, especially if you want something that's both physical and mental. And the good news is there's a ton of info out there, videos, articles, you name it. Just got to be careful, find good sources, and don't go too hard too fast, especially when you're starting out.
Baby steps.
Exactly. Like any new habit,
Yeah.
got to ease into it.
Now, we were talking about Taoist practices and how they affect the vagus nerve, which seems super relevant for someone who's dealing with those like actual physical tremors.
For sure. That vagus nerve, it's like mission control for our body's calm down response. Practices like the microcosmic orbit, which is this Taoist technique for basically circulating energy, it can be seriously helpful for regulating the vagus nerve.
Okay, so how complicated are we talking here?
That's a little involved, not gonna lie. Think of it as a gentle massage for your nervous system, but inside out. Probably best to learn from someone who knows their stuff, though.
Right. Now, me personally, I'm curious about this Kriya Yoga. Breath work, it just like centers me. But is it really going to do much for someone dealing with, say, tremors?
Don't underestimate the power of a good breath. Seriously. Kriya Yoga, though, it's next-level breathing exercises. We're talking controlled breathing plus meditation. Powerful combo. It's like hitting the reset button for your mind and body at the same time.
A 2-for-1 reset, I like it. What about mental mudras? Can visualizing stuff like positive images and all that, can it really help someone with physical anxiety?
So research on mental mudras, specifically for tremors, it's still in the early stages. But we do know that visualization techniques, they can be surprisingly powerful. It's about shifting your mindset, going from anxious to calm. And often when your mind chills out, your body says, hey, all right, I can relax now too.
Fake it till you make it, basically, but with your brain.
Kinda. Yeah. And then there's Shaktipat, which is, I think it's fair to say, the most mysterious of the bunch. Would you recommend that for someone who's looking for like immediate relief from anxiety, from tremors?
Shaktipat's powerful, definitely, but it's not exactly a quick fix. It's a journey, not a destination, You need to find a qualified teacher, someone you vibe with, and really be ready to dive into some serious spiritual exploration. It can be transformative, absolutely, but it's deeply personal and it takes time.
So less about instant gratification, more about like a fundamental shift in how you experience, well, everything. You got it. Honestly, the best advice I can give anyone is to listen to your gut. Explore, see what calls to you. And remember, consistency is key. Even baby steps, as long as you keep at it, can make a big difference in the long run.
Right, like you don't have to become a meditation master or energy guru overnight. It's about finding what you can stick with, what you enjoy.
Exactly. And don't forget, you're not alone in this. There are tons of resources out there, communities, groups, everything. Don't be afraid to reach out. Ask questions, connect with other people who are on a similar path.
So wow, this has been quite the deep dive, huh? Ancient practices, modern problems. Turns out there's a lot of wisdom from the past that can help us navigate this crazy thing we call life.
Totally agree. And honestly, we're just scratching the surface here. As we continue to explore these practices, to learn more about how our mind and body work together, who knows what amazing discoveries are still out there waiting for us.
Love that thought. So much possibility. On that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into that fascinating world where ancient wisdom meets modern well-being.
If these ancient practices intrigue you, imagine the calm they could bring into your life. Ready to explore more mind-body techniques? Subscribe to Cognitive Curves for deeper insights and practical tips. Don't forget to drop your questions in the comments. We're here to help you on your journey.